If you are like many people, you probably have no idea what preterism is, particularly if you don't consider yourself to be particularly spiritually minded. However, I think it's something that people might do well to look into. I don't intend for this particular video to be exhaustive, and I don't intend to offer a whole lot of proof in this video because not only are there other videos, articles, and websites that provide relevant information, but also because I simply want this to be a brief introduction and overview. So, what is preterism? In short, it's the idea that what is commonly known as the end times, in accordance to biblical scripture, has already taken place either in part or in full. Basically, it means that some feel that some or all of the prophecies in the Bible about the end times have already been fulfilled. Some of those people are known as partial preterists, which means they only believe that some of them have been fulfilled, while others are known as full preterists, which means they think that all of the end times prophecies have been fulfilled. I'm leaning more towards full preterism, and with that comes the idea that Jesus Christ has already returned, just like the first century apostles and believers thought he would. This isn't just some odd, off-the-cuff idea off the top of my head either. In fact, it seems to be growing in popularity. Now, obviously, some people will wonder how that could even be. My simple response for the purposes of this video would be that the answer involves them getting rid of their preconceived notions, such as, but aren't limited to, the idea that his return would be a phenomenon that every eye on the planet would see, that his return will include a physical and bodily resurrection of people from the dead, at least as we understand it, that his return would bring about a utopia on Earth for 1,000 literal years, until the physical Earth and universe are burned up and destroyed with fire, to make way for an entirely new Earth and universe, etc. Another big question some people might ask is, why is it important? Well, one would think that if Christ already returned, as it has been understood that he said he would, it's a pretty big deal, and the implications are huge. For instance, it would increase people's faith because they will understand that all has been fulfilled, just like it was said would happen in the first century. At least I think it has strengthened my faith. After all, if you realize that it was said that the prophecies would take place within that generation, and then realize that they did in accordance with what was actually understood to happen, such as the destruction of Jerusalem and Israel as a physical nation by the Romans in 70 AD, how could it not? There is also the implication that the law, a people have understood it, is already done away with. For instance, we need to examine the following scripture very carefully. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 to 18, New International Version. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. You have to notice how that was emphasized, and how it was basically saying, not the least part of the law will disappear until heaven and earth disappear. Many Christians have an idea that certain parts of the law are done away with since the death and resurrection of Christ. They will say that the sacrificial and ceremonial laws are done away with, but the moral laws remain. Only thing about that is, I have read that there was no such division as far as what was to be done concerning the law. In other words, the law was the law. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, if the previous scripture means that not even one little piece of the law of Moses, would disappear until heaven and earth disappear, then all of the law is to be followed, such as not eating shellfish, not mixing certain fabrics, honoring the dietary restrictions, honoring the biblical feast days, including the biblical Sabbath, being mostly Saturday, etc., unless heaven and earth has disappeared, passed away. This is quite the conundrum if a person doesn't believe that heaven and earth has passed away. After all, as far as people know, the physical earth and universe has never disappeared or been burned to destruction, as some scriptures appear to say would happen, after the resurrection of Christ. If they haven't, then that would mean that if they wanted to be righteous, they would have to follow all of the law. Indeed, it was written in James chapter 2, verse 10, New International Version. For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. But don't worry, this is why we need to understand what was really meant. Unfortunately, reading some scriptures straight through in the English based on our modern understanding won't always give an accurate understanding. I could try to go into a lot more detail, but for the purposes of this video, I'll just say that it is understood that the term heaven and earth in such instances, particularly in reference to disappearing, passing away, or being destroyed, was in reference to the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem, along with the destruction of Jerusalem itself, the nation or country of Israel, and the entire Old Covenant system, which is understood to have taken place when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and burned the temple in 70 AD. I once read that because the temple was understood to be the meeting place between heaven and earth, God's sanctuary on earth, if you will. It was the representation of heaven and earth, and, by extension, the entire Old Covenant system with its rituals, customs, ceremonies, and laws. For more information on these matters, I recommend you check out our video titled How Heaven and Earth Already Passed Away on TikTok and on YouTube. I suppose another big reason why it's important is because it won't have so many people afraid of the future while having a subconscious defeatist attitude, feeling that people can only look forward to evil winning for a time, things inevitably getting worse before they get better, the rise of some satanically inspired New World Order, the rise of a one-world dictator known as the Antichrist, and the implementation of the mark of the beast, etc. Whether people admit it or not, such thinking can cause some people to not want to work too hard, if at all, to make the world a better place and to fight against corrupt governments and institutions because they feel that those governments will inevitably win and that things can't and won't get better until in their minds Christ returns. It may also cause people to make rash decisions, such as getting rid of their life savings and so forth, whenever someone comes up with another end times prediction that ultimately fails. In conclusion, I think that it is extremely important for people, especially those who are believers, to look into these matters. Like I've tried to make clear, if it is indeed true that Christ has already returned, something that the apostles and early believers of the first century expected to soon happen, then people have had a huge misunderstanding about what has taken place, what to expect in the future, and what it all means for us today. Hopefully this video has whet your appetite a little bit to look into these matters a lot more thoroughly. All that being said, I'll leave you with a few other scriptures to ponder. Matthew chapter 10, verse 23. When they persecute you in one town, flee to the next. For truly, I tell you, you will not have gone through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Matthew chapter 16, verse 28. Truly, I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 29 to 31. What I mean, brothers and sisters, is that the time is short. From now on, those who have wives should live as if they do not. For this world in its present form is passing away. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 37. For in just a little while he who is coming will come and will not delay. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7. The end of all things is near. Therefore be alert and of sober mind so that you may pray. Revelation chapter 1, verses 1 and 3. The revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near. Revelation chapter 22, verse 10. Then he told me, do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this scroll, because the time is near. That last scripture contrasts with Daniel chapter 12, verse 4, where Daniel is told to seal his prophecy for a distant future. Feel free to comment and ask any questions, but I warn you in advance that I may simply post a link to an article, another video, or something to answer questions because this is a lot to get into, and I'm not sure if I'm willing to go into depth to answer every question on these matters. Thanks for listening and for any likes and shares of this video.